by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Wow. So, I have a confession. I have abandoned some books. I've left them there to collect dust. I've used them as counterweights to hold other things up. It's kind of a new thing for me because usually when I get books, I breeze through them and I'm literally addicted. But lately, some books I've been getting 25-30% of the way and I'm just like, I'm no longer interested. So to keep it short and sweet, here are 5 books I stopped reading. So the first one is The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. And if you are into self-improvement, self-help, whatever you want to call it, you've probably heard about this book. Even if you're not into it, you've probably heard about this book. It sold millions, very popular, very famous, highly recommended by a lot of people, but I just couldn't finish it. And I've tried 3 times. Now, the first time, I was in different circumstances. I'm reading some of these things thinking, I can't really apply this. This doesn't really feel like my life at the moment. And I just felt like I was wasting my time reading it. So I put it down. Now, even though circumstances had changed, I tried to pick it up 2 more times. And somewhere down the line, I just lose interest. Maybe it's because I've read many other self-help books. It just doesn't, I'm not going to say it's not valuable, but yeah, I just can't be asked. The next one is called Tyranny of Merit by Michael J. Sandel. I'll be honest, this is probably the first book I said I'm not reading anymore. I honestly couldn't tell you why I purchased the book in the first place. I can't remember. I must have seen it somewhere and thought, let me give it a try, something different. But the book is about the meritocracy and, how it can become tyrannical. And at first, I was on board. I felt it was really good, really interesting, treading on grounds that I had no familiarity with. But then after a while, it just started to get a bit repetitive. I mean, I would see a line and I'm like, I'm sure I've read this line before, like 5 pages before. And it happened about 5-6 times. So to me, it started to feel like there was like a lot of bloat, a lot of padding, a lot of filler. Going over the same point, you felt like you're not really progressing through whatever he's saying. So I gave that up. And that was probably my first book. I was like, I'm not interested. Like, I consciously made the effort to say no. So the next one is The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. And I've read one of these books before, technically one, which is called The 50th Law. It was a collaboration between him and 50 Cent, a follow up to the 40 Laws of Power, which I haven't read. I've watched the video, probably won't ever read it. Now, this is my type of book. This is my type of book because I love when people make a point and then tell a story around that point to add, context or, give an example, especially when the stories are either true or just well thought out. He does this a lot and, I can sit there and read all the stories and I'm engrossed. The problem with this book is it's a big boy. There's a lot of content to cover in this. Like there's a lot of subtopics within the human nature and it's like to really grasp what he's saying and really understand, you do need to take your time and sort of study the book. But no, right now, I don't really want to study the book. So I'm going to put it down for now. But yeah, this is not one of them books you could just pick up, read, and then carry on about the day. You have to sort of think, observe it in other people, observe it in yourself, maybe do some exercises on it, to fully get it. But yeah, I ain't got time for that. But it's something that I would like to come back to because, I did think the book was very good. Now, the next one is maybe a controversial one. I don't know. 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. So I got this book in 2020, which was around about the time I first heard of Jordan Peterson in the first place. And I saw he had a book out and I wanted to see what it was about. And to my surprise, I quite liked it for what I did read, but I do have some mixed feelings on it. Firstly, the way he structures this book in terms of his writing style is very reminiscent of how he talks in real life. And for me, that took a little moment to adjust to. Second, whilst the topics were interesting because of the titles and stuff like that, Jordan Peterson likes to go very, very deep on topics to the point where he's using philosophy, theology and stuff to explain. And when I first read it, I felt like he was going off on such a tangent that I almost forgot the purpose of this chapter in the first place. I forgot what he was trying to explain. I got through quite a few chapters, but it just felt so hard to keep up. And sometimes I had to stop midway, go back to the title of the chapter and be like, okay, what are we even talking about here? So for that reason, I put it down. But I did actually start recently rereading it and I enjoyed it so much more. I was able to keep up with, his tangents and he's explaining. And you know what? I kind of appreciate how deep he goes into some of these topics because it makes you feel like he's really thought about what he's saying. And he's not just saying it as some, cash grab or regurgitating nonsense. There's foundation behind what he's saying. So even though I haven't finished it, I reckon I will soon. But it is one of those, you don't just read back to front. You pick a chapter that's relevant and you read it. So when I'll finish it, I don't know. Now, the one I've left for last is a classic, a Penguin classic called Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Wow. is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. So at some point last year, I wanted to expand the type of books I was reading, and philosophy books kind of had some appeal, but I didn't want to dive straight into philosophy, and somehow through that, I was recommended one of Dostoevsky's work, and I just happened to pick Crime and Punishment. Cliche, maybe. Now, I've gotten through quite a few pages of this book, and from what I remember, the main character, whose name I can't remember, he was upset about his sister's marital arrangements, and he was going on a run, and he's walking down the road and stuff, not happy. Now, as much as I liked reading this book, the reason why I stopped was simply because I'm not at that level yet, Going from reading some self-help books to, a few biographies to reading Russian literature is a huge step up, relatively speaking. Bear in mind, this is over a year ago, and I remember there was a part where the guy's name, I'm pretty sure it begins with an R. He's in a bar and there's a drunk guy just ranting, and the amount of times I had to reread certain lines, certain paragraphs was quite alarming. And they say reading is a skill, and maybe I need to train up more. Maybe I need some XP, slay some dragons first, get some new equipment, and then I'll come back to it. But I do plan to come back to this book, but yeah, just wasn't ready for it. So yeah, those are the books I stopped reading for some reason or another. Quite varied in causes. Some of them too advanced for me, some of them just got bored, some of them repetitive, some of them I'm just saving till later. But yeah, that's my list of books I have stopped reading for one reason or another. Let me know any reasons you stopped reading books, any books that you might want to get back to, or books are just crap. Yeah, let me know in the comments.